Hello and welcome to ModB.com's Stanislaus Football Weekly, an inside look at all things football in the Modesto area. And now for your hosts, Joe Cortez and Brian VanderBeek.
Hi everybody and welcome to Stanislaus Football Weekly for the third week of October. We're going to get right into last week's games. Oh, by the way, I'm Brian VanderBeek. This is Ron Agostini and Joe Cortez down at the end. And we all saw big games last week that not only have playoff implications, but implications also for league races. And we'll start with Joe, because you were at the Modesto Enochs game over at Johansson High.
Yeah, Modesto won this one over Enochs 42-20, and Modesto is really starting to come into its own. You know, they had trouble putting two halves of football together, and that doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. They were dominant, and it was a really nice performance by Tiki Tonga, who was playing with a heavy heart. His grandfather passed away Friday morning, and he learned about it on the way to the game. So a really courageous performance from him.
Yeah.
And you know, Modesto to me is looking like the team to beat in the MMC. Bayer is 3-0 and in first place, and Modesto is 2-1, but they play each other in 2 weeks, so they each have their fate in their own hands. They win out and they're the league champion. Simple as that.
Oh, good. That's yeah. I haven't seen Bayer play yet. I'd like to see them play. I'd like to see Modesto play again, because the only time I've seen them play was against Pittman, and that was not pretty.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was at the Ripon-Hillmar game, which was at the only two 7-0 teams in the Sac Joaquin section. Hillmar pulled away to win that 33-21, but this was 31-7 at halftime. Ripon decided to put 9 in the box, 8 or 9 in the box, and really put its talented defensive backs on islands, and Jonathan O'Brien just really picked them apart. 10 of 14 for 220 yards and 2 scores in the first half. He also ran the read option twice for scores of 13 and 12. I really got the feeling that Hillmar could have won this game by 40 or more points.
Wow.
But Frank Marcus just, okay, we got it in hand. We're not going to insult or just make anybody feel bad. And so he pulled his foot off the gas, and Ripon made a little bit of a comeback, but never really got closer than 2 scores. And yeah, it was just really an overwhelming performance by Hillmar. Very impressive. Hillmar still has Escalon and Houston left on their road to be to 10-0, a regular season 10-0.
Could Hillmar have been underrated this year a little bit?
They were underrated, I think, for a reason. And Frank admitted it. He scheduled teams like Chowchilla and Dos Palos 2 years ahead of time when they were going strong, and there's no reason to believe that they weren't going to be as good as they were. So the opponents for Hillmar going into that game only had 11 wins. They were one of the lower contenders in D4 and opponents' wins, and because of that, that's the reason Hillmar was flying under the radar, and boy, they're not under anybody's radar anymore.
So what about that defense we heard so much about from some of our coaches who had
They're
given
very
us a
good.
little scouting report?
They're very good. Ripon did move the ball through the air when it needed to, which was a good sign for their young quarterback, Nick Price. I still don't want to play Ripon in the playoffs. Defensively, they're very, very similar to Ripon. But Hillmar's passing game was just a little bit more advanced. They had the junior quarterback instead of the sophomore quarterback, and it showed. That experience showed. This is O'Brien's second year as a starter, and that showed.
Now the tough part of Ripon's schedule is behind them now, right?
They're going to finish 9-1. They're going to finish 9-1, and probably a 4 seed, I'm guessing, in the Division 4 playoffs, a 4 or a 5 seed. So they'll open at home. At least 1, probably 2. You were at the Corral.
I was at the Corral, Brian, for Friday night's game between Sierra and Oakdale. Oakdale coming off that tough loss to Manteca the week before, so they couldn't afford another loss. And it was homecoming night in Oakdale. And the game was fascinating. Oakdale won the game 24-17. It was fascinating because Sierra scored touchdowns on its first 2 possessions. They scored easily on their first 2 possessions. Their fine quarterback, Jake Pruitt, completed 9 of his first 10. Was rolling. They were back driving again. I think they were at the 24-yard line. Did not score, and the game changed. Oakdale got its feet under them and rallied to win. Only great programs can do that. And Oakdale, coming off a loss, far behind in the game, kept their composure, won a big game. So the Valley Oak League race still up in the air, although Manteca obviously still in charge. Looking at that big game next week, Sierra and Oakdale, for the whole to see if Manteca can be caught here. and it should be a good finish in the VOL. But big win by Oakdale. Jake Pruitt's the real deal. He's a very fine quarterback, 6'3", throws any pass you want. Oakdale did a nice adjustment during that game. Really crowded Sierra's receivers. Took away all the quick stuff that Pruitt prefers, and turned around that ball game. And then Oakdale's running attack, then the familiar running game we know from Oakdale took over with Brock Whiting and Max Stevens. Yeah. Big win for Oakdale on homecoming night, and a sign of how good a program they have.
It's a huge win. Playoff implications, they lose that. Probably still going to be in the playoffs, but a very, very low seed. And that's what we're going to look at now. 3 weeks left in the regular season. First of all, we're going to look at the teams who are in already. And we do have 10 teams that have already clinched a playoff berth. They can print the tickets, print the programs, order the popcorn because they're already in. And we're going to run those down. All of them are Division III and lower. We don't have any Division I or II teams that have yet clinched, but we're going to get some in, and we'll talk about that in a second. The 10 teams that are already in, Division III, Patterson with 7 wins, Manteca and Pacheco with 6 wins are already in. In Division IV, Hilmar, like we mentioned, with 8 wins, they're in. Ripon with 7. Central Catholic and Amador with 6 wins are also already in. In Division V, LeGrand's already in with 7 wins. Mariposa is already in with 6 wins. And Division VI, Ripon Christian already has 7 wins, and they're definitely in. The big question here is, who's going to be in with them?
Who's going to join them, right?
So let's look at that conference by conference. In the MMC, like we said, nobody's yet qualified. Beyer and Grigori at 5 wins apiece. Modesto and Downey at 4 wins apiece. Some of these teams have played 7 games. Some of these teams have played 8 games. But and we're looking at Beyer and Grigori. Beyer in the latest projections probably looks like a Division II team.
Yeah.
They're right on that Division I-II cusp. Probably going Division II. Modesto and Downey would be Division I teams if they get in. My gut feeling, all 4 of them are going to get in. The way this is going to play out, Modesto needs 2 wins. They have Davis and Johansson left. Those are going to be 2 wins for Modesto, and you've got them maybe even beating Beyer and going for the league title there. Downey at 4 wins has games left against Enox, Davis, and Beyer. They're going to probably to win 2 out of those 3, get to their 6 wins, and they're going to be in. Beyer and Grigori needing only 1 win apiece.
Right.
I just don't think that's going to be a problem for either team.
No, Grigori has a winless Johansson team left on its schedule, so they probably get to 6 wins. I think Beyer and Modesto get there, and I think Downey is able to do it too.
Yeah. A little bit more interesting in the CCC. All the teams in the CCC are still mathematically alive for the playoffs, still have a chance to get to 6 wins. Who's going to get in? We've got Merced and Pittman at 5 wins right now. We've got Atwater, a Division II school, Atwater and Turlock at 4. Buhack and Golden Valley both have to run the table. They're at 3 wins right now. Let's just cross them off. They're mathematically in. Logically, no, they're not in. I think the way this is going to turn out, Merced and Pittman are going to be in. I think Atwater may be left out. I actually think Turlock's going to get in too. They need 2 wins out of their remaining schedule of Atwater, Buhack, and then the Harvest Bowl against Pittman. I just have a gut feeling they're going to win 2 of those games. If Turlock beats Atwater, I think that leaves Atwater out of the Division IV with only 5 wins. That's the big question there.
I see Atwater winning that game against Turlock, so I'm not so quick to put Turlock through, and I'm not so quick to give up on Atwater. Atwater's got it tough. They've got to face Turlock, and that's no easy task there. But I got a feeling Atwater wins that game, and then they have Merced and Buhack, and those are tough. They're going to have to probably win one of those games that may be a little over their head. So they're still on that bubble.
Well, what you're saying that if Atwater beats Turlock and then
that's
doesn't
their 5th win.
That's their 5th win and doesn't win any of the last 2, there's a very good chance the CCC only gets 2 teams. The
Merced and Pittman.
MMC would get 4 and the CCC would get 2, possibly.
Correct.
Yeah.
The way we're breaking it down.
The way we're breaking it down.
That would be correct.
And 'tis the season to break these things down. As we mentioned in the Valley Oak League, Manteca's already in. We have Sierra at 5 wins. Oakdale still only has 4 wins. Kimball with 3 wins. Sierra, they play East Union, Manteca, Western Ranch. I think that's 2 wins. They only need 1. They're in. I think that's a no-brainer. Oakdale needs to win 2 of the following 3. Kimball, Lathrop, Sonora. they win all three of those. I'm guessing they win all three of those. If they beat if they beat Sierra, certainly they're gonna roll over these teams. Kimball, that's a pretty long. First of all, Kimball has to beat Oakdale to keep its playoff hopes alive, and that's this week, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
So what we're looking at here is probably the VOL getting 3 teams in this year.
And obviously the big game next week, Sierra versus Manteca.
Yes.
And Oakdale will be rooting for Sierra.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now the WAC is interesting too. We've got Patterson unbeaten, Patterson, Pacheco, and Central Catholic already have qualified out of the WAC. Los Banos and Central Valley with 4 wins apiece. Now that's when you start looking at who they're playing. Los Banos needing 2 wins. They have Livingston, Central Valley, and Pacheco left, and I think Los Banos gets 2 of those.
I agree. I think they'll handle Livingston and Central Valley. Pacheco is going to be a really good, the crosstown clash, as we learned last week.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a really big matchup this year.
Central Valley has a little bit tougher road to hoe. Central Catholic this week, then Los Banos and Ceres. I think I don't know. Maybe we should ask this: Is there what's the Central Valley Ceres rivalry called? Is that the Mayor's Cup? Like that,
well, except we've got some more research to do.
I think we do. Maybe somebody should call us this week with that information. But Central Valley needs to win 2 of those 3 games, and I'd like to see it. Because I'd like to see Gardner get a chance in an extra playoff game, but I
don't see it happening.
Yeah. I'll go to the TVL, and we talked about the Hilmar-Ripon game. Both of those teams are already in. Houston is sitting there at 5 wins. Escalon and Modesto Christian sitting there at 4 wins apiece. What complicates that matter is that both of these teams need to win 2 of their last 3 games, and one of those games is against each other, which is going to be a very pivotal game. Houston has Modesto Christian, Riverbank, and Hilmar left. Only needs to win 1 of those. Obviously, they're going to beat Riverbank. Modesto Christian may be a good test for Houston. That's this week.
Yeah.
And
it will be a good
yeah,
test for Houston.
it'll be a good test for them. I still think, obviously, they need one win. At the very least,
And
they
they'll
get
get
versus
it.
Riverbank,
And they'll
so
get
they're
it.
going to be in. Escalon and Modesto Christian, I think we mentioned this about 3 weeks ago, that the deciding factor for either of these teams reaching the postseason is their head-to-head. They both need to find 2 wins out of the remaining schedule. Modesto Christian still has Escalon left. Modesto Christian, Houston, Escalon, or Estimba. Escalon has Hilmar, Modesto Christian, Riverbank. If Escalon beats Hilmar this week, obviously they could get in as a co-champion, and they would get to 6 wins. My gut feeling is, and I think I said this 3 or 4 weeks ago, is that Escalon beats Modesto Christian for that final playoff spot. But I think that's what it's going to come down.
I haven't seen Modesto Christian this year. The one game I saw Escalon, they looked really good against Houston. But Modesto Christian just keeps on plugging away with 20 guys. So I'm not ready to call that one yet.
Right.
This is going to come down to the wire, I think.
Yeah.
There are signs, though, that Escalon is improving.
Absolutely.
And they are coming on. That's what you're trying to do here during these seasons is to keep growing. And Escalon's one of these teams that their arrow is pointing up.
Escalon at Hilmar this week. That's going to be a really, really interesting game. In the Mother Lode League, Amador is in, despite getting its first loss of the week this last week against Calaveras. And Calaveras has 5 wins. They finished with Argonaut, Somerville, and Bret Hart. It doesn't matter. They're going to get in as a league champ. As a league champ, possibly with 8 wins. Argonaut has 4 wins right now, finishes with Calaveras, Bret Hart, and Amador. I don't see him getting in because I don't see him beating Calaveras, and that's this week. And then I also don't see him beating Amador in that rivalry.
They've got 2 really big games. They'll beat Bret Hart.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that 6th win comes from.
Yeah, so I see Argonaut finishing at 5-5. Linden has to run the table, and they're just not going to do it. Amador and Somerville left on their schedule.
I agree.
And so let's move right along to the Southern League. Southern League, Grant, LeGrand, Mariposa, Ripon Christian, a D6 team, are already in. Gustine sitting there at 4 wins. First of all, great season. I mean, Gustine, what they're working with there, and absolutely getting the ball rolling in Gustine. They're sitting there at 4-3 right now.
And its first win in a long time over Estimba.
Absolutely, good for them and Gustine and the Redskins, but the Redskins do finish with LeGrand, Ripon Christian, and Mariposa in that order, and
tough.
You need to get 2 of those. Actually, they may get in as a 5-5, but that would mean you have to win one of those 3 games,
and that's no certainty there.
I just don't see it happening. We got to mention Big Valley Christian. They're at 4 wins
Yeah.
right now. They're at Brookside Christian this week. Brookside Christian is going to be the odds-on favorite to win it all in Division 6.
Defending section champ.
Yeah, but then Big Valley Christian finishes with Elliott Christian and Stone Ridge. So I'm looking at Big Valley to finish 6-4, second place in the CCAA, and maybe going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and good for Big Valley
Absolutely.
Christian. You know, they're 3-0 since the passing of head coach Larry Schimmel, so they've really rallied around that and performed admirably.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year for them.
So after this rundown, by my count, maybe not Joe's count, by all of our counts, 22 or 23 Stanislaus District teams look headed toward the playoffs this year. We had 26 in last year. Just as an aside, 76 total teams in the section make the playoffs, and there are 128 teams. So it's almost like
More than half.
it's almost like the NBA or NHL, where if you're good, you're in. Let's go right into the picks, and we'll stay in town. Beyer at Grigori.
Beyer.
Beyer too. I've been on the Grigori bandwagon all year, but I'm still waiting for that first big win.
Yeah, I like Beyer. I like their running back Jay Green, and I can't pronounce his name. Fabamila. It's a tough one, but number 20.
Number 20.
Fagbamia.
It's Fabamila. Yeah. They know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Wonderful tandem back there, and I like them this week against
I haven't
Grigori.
seen Beyer this year.
Right.
And Grigori is going to honor the veterans and current military personnel, I should point out, this week with free admission, and they'll be honored at the game
Oh, nice.
at
Very nice.
Don Lanphier
They
Stadium.
they still have to walk all the way to the stadium, though, right?
Yeah, and that's a hike, yeah.
I'll go with Beyer too.
Yeah, I think we'll make
I've
it.
not seen them play yet this year.
Neither have I, but
I think Bayer's the choice. Yeah.
I think so too. I'm finally off the Grigori Salida train there. Atwater at Turlock, a big game. This is huge for both teams. I don't know. I haven't seen Atwater. I've seen Turlock, and they're good. I haven't seen them in about a month, but I'm just going for Turlock on its home field here. And here, I think that's where we're going to disagree.
I'm going to go with Atwater here. Atwater, like we said last week, was kind of flying under the radar all year. They were 4-2. They lost a game last week to Pittman. No shame there. Pittman's a wonderful team.
Yeah.
I like Atwater to bounce back.
I like Atwater too. I think they have improved despite the loss last week. I think they're coming on.
Okay, the game I'm going to be at, Pacheco at Patterson. I've seen Patterson. They get a double overtime win against Escalon. They're undefeated. I'm under the impression that they're undefeated and still kind of untested. They haven't played the toughest of schedules. They've played the schedule that's come to them. Pacheco at 6-2 right now could be a really good test for Patterson. I'm really anxious to see Pacheco. I've never seen Pacheco play. Anxious to see him. I'm going for the home team here. I think Patterson pulls this out, and I think they'll be undefeated all the way to that final regular season game against Central Catholic.
Sounds like an exciting season for Pacheco this year.
Yeah.
Very young school, enjoying some success early on, aren't they, Joe?
Frank Ginda,
Frank Ginda, quite a player, huh?
junior, 6'2", 225.
There you go.
There you are.
Well, Patterson's got some hosses on defense too. That's going to be fun.
I got an email from a reader who asked me to keep picking against Patterson. So I will, just for this reader. I'll go with Pacheco.
There you go. Where was this reader from? Patterson, obviously. Yeah. Escalon at Hilmar. Who's going to that game? You going to the game?
I am going to that game.
You are going to that game.
Wow,
Yeah.
you stunned me.
That's right. That's right.
I am going to see Hilmar for the first time this
That's
year.
right.
I've seen Escalon, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Hilmar. I'm a believer after last
Yeah.
week's convincing win over Ripon.
Yeah.
Me too.
At
home, especially.
I have to. I mean, because I saw Escalon lose 35-3 to Ripon, and then Hilmar turn around and put a pasting on Ripon, and that was as impressive a win in the TVL as I've seen in a long time. Calaveras at Argonaut. Now, we haven't seen these teams, but just on scores, this is interesting. There's somewhat of a rivalry up there, and Calaveras coming off their huge victory over Amador last week, and Argonaut, they've got a run. They've been in the playoffs forever, and they've got a section champion 5-6 years ago, and a lot of pride on stake with Argonaut, and I still got to go with Calaveras here because I think they're going to run the table in the MLL. And again, this is a team that got blown out by Modesto Christian.
Right.
I'll take Calaveras in this game. They're on form,
Yeah.
playing well right now. I'll stay with them even though they're on the road.
Just to be the contrarian, I'll go with Argonaut at home.
You'll pick East Union, right?
Oh,
Pick
yeah,
East
right.
Union.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to our final points. Joe, what do you want to enlighten us on?
Well,
Breaking news.
breaking news, yeah. Sent to me from my editor, Brian Clark. Jaquan Gardner of Central Valley High School
Right.
needs 361 yards to break the all-time Stanislaus District rushing record. However, now that record is held by Lewis Bland of Central Catholic.
That's right.
Gardner's playing Central Catholic this week, and they just happen to have two Bland brothers
Yes.
at the linebacker position.
Waiting for him.
I got a hunch it's going to be tough sledding against Central Catholic. And then Ripon Christian's Andrew Brown, he needs 597, and we're anticipating him getting a couple playoff games. So it looks like Gardner's going to break this record
Right. And
then lose it 2 weeks later to Andrew Brown.
I think it could be, but I also think that Gardner could be in a position where, facing Central Catholic this week, Los Banos next week, he could need something like 210 or 220 against Ceres in that last game to get the record.
Absolutely, yeah.
My final point is that looking back at that kind of a postscript to the Hillmar-Ripon game, huge week for Hillmar. Not only did they take one unbeaten out in Ripon, but Calaveras beating Amador and Center beating Colfax leaves Hillmar as the only remaining unbeaten in Division IV.
Yeah.
So how about that?
They're looking at a #1 seed.
Right. I mean, Escalon and Houston, the only speed bumps left to the guaranteed top seed in Division IV if they're
right.
unbeaten and a league champion. Ripon, on the other hand, looking at 9-1, possibly a #4 seed. I'm still looking for Central Catholic to get in there at the #2 seed with 9 wins. Ripon with 9 wins, probably a 4 seed, which would set up an interesting semifinal, the rematch that Chris Johnson wants against Hillmar.
Absolutely. I don't mean to step on your final point, Beek,
Right.
but that Division IV is going to be a monster bracket.
Every year it is.
Hillmar, Ripon, Central Catholic, Amador,
Yeah.
Calaveras,
Yeah.
Capital Christian, Colfax, Marysville.
Yeah.
Not to mention Escalon, Los Banos, Placer, Center.
Yeah.
That's a minefield.
Yeah, it's always a great run there. And I do have to mention the food discovery we made last week in Hillmar. They revised the upgraded snack bar at Hillmar High, a Portuguese corn dog, which is a linguiça link dipped in batter and fried like a corn dog.
I will be having one
I got a
this
picture.
week.
I got a picture of it, but I had a little dinner dinner date, I guess, before the game the other night in Hillmar. So I was full when I went to the stadium. Once I found that, I had to take a picture of it. I do have a picture of it, but
I didn't even know that existed.
I didn't either. But
I will not be eating breakfast or lunch on Friday.
That's right. Ron, what's up with you?
Two quick things, Brian,
Okay.
as we close out here. There are 6 winless teams left in the Sac Joaquin section. One of them is Johansson. They're 0-8. They have a bye this week. I wanted to mention that just to note the capricious nature of winning. It's hard to win. Nevada Union has won 4 section titles. They are a former powerhouse. They are winless this year.
Yeah.
That's really tough. So we wish the best of these teams. Hopefully they'll get a win, get some positive reinforcement. As I've written before, winning comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, especially at this level. So we want all these teams to fight to the last snap because there are rewards in that. And the last thing, Modesto Junior College is on the road again at Sierra Saturday afternoon.
Ooh.
All they did is score 76 points against Sequoias and Visalia last
That's
week.
it?
That was all. Only 45 first downs. School records galore. Quite a performance by the Pirates. So we'll see if they can keep that up Saturday.
Sierra's pretty tough, though, huh?
Yes, they are, and they've been tough on Modesto the last
Yeah.
few years.
What time's that start?
1 o'clock.
That's a 1 o'clock start?
1 o'clock in Rockland.
Bring your sunscreen. Well, that's it for Stanislaus Football Weekly for the 3rd week of October. I'm Brian VanderBeek. That's Joe Cortez, and this is Ron Agostini. Have a great football weekend.